What's going on, everybody? My name is Justin Godsey for Justin Godsey TV. Thank you so much for checking out today's video. I'm here to recap Game 5 of the 2014 NLCS between the San Francisco Giants at home taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. And I would have to say this was by far one of the most entertaining NLCSs I have seen in my entire existence in life, because this game, this entire series, was just, neck and neck between these two teams who have that MLB, World Series roster. I mean, both teams are World Series winners. The San Francisco Giants are going to their third World Series in 5 years. Bruce Bochy has completely turned his team around. Last year, the team had a very disappointing year. A lot of people were expecting them to really have a deep run, but you know what? A lot of injuries came up, and a lot of poor play came from the Giants. And on a 10-game losing streak in the middle of the season, that really hurt them. But the Giants were able to pull out the big one. In 2014, this was a huge year for the San Francisco Giants. They were able to keep it close in the division. They got in at the wild card, defeated the Pittsburgh Pirates, defeated the Washington Nationals, and to come in and have a homestand for the last 2 games and defeat the St. Louis Cardinals was nothing but victorious for the team. But I do have to tip my cap off over to the St. Louis Cardinals for their their dedication and their team was able to keep this all these games close. And when you really look into it, this was a very much needed victory for the St. Louis Cardinals. And they were a team that always likes to jump off to a nice start. And the St. Louis Cardinals, after tremendous defensive plays by John Jay also hit the bat pretty well. You also got to give things over to Matt Adams. He was primarily that guy you really wanted to watch in the lineup, because he does pack that power. He did hit a home run tonight. And also, Colton Wong, a guy who officially broke out, and I expect him to be one of the top second basemen or shortstops, or whatever they want to place him in 2015. I think he's going to be one of the best, more than likely shortstop. I think Peter Kozma will probably end up taking the bench run. This is the time where Colton Wong officially came in and really broke out. I'm very excited to see a player of his caliber, come onto the scene and make a big impact. Even in the playoffs, having a big impact in the playoffs will help this team going down the line. Matt Carpenter, big ups to him, great defensive plays as well. But the Giants got the best of them. The Giants, in the first game of the NLCS, they got the victory. The second game, it was a walk-off home run for the Cardinals. They take the series back over to San Francisco, and the Giants end up taking over and winning the games, and they defeat the St. Louis Cardinals and move on to the World Series. Now, for the NLCS champions, not the World Champion Giants, not yet. As you guys can see, I am personally a Giants fan, but there's no way I'm going to end up, bragging all about the Giants. But this was a year that San Francisco Giants were able to turn things around. Last year, it was a complete downfall for the Giants. If you guys remember, a 10-game losing streak in the middle of the season really crushed the Giants' hopes of going to the playoffs. That 10 or 12-game losing streak really killed the Giants, and they had a chance to rebuild. And this is going to be, the season where, a lot is on the line. The Giants did not want to open up to these negotiations with Pablo Sandoval until we can actually, see what he can do in his final year. I think they should be open up the contract talks following the World Series, because Pablo Sandoval is one of those players that the Giants cannot afford to lose. I mean, when you really look into our entire infield, you give a lot of hope over to Brandon Bell. You give the new hopeful over for Joe Panik, who's likely to be starting next year. Marco Scutaro, I cannot give a lot of faith. I think the Giants, put down way too much money for a 2-year contract for Marco Scutaro. That's not something that I would do personally, even though he's an aging shortstop who only played, a total of, 5 or 10 games this year, something like that, and they offered him a 2-year contract. It's just something that I don't really agree with. So I think Joe Panik will be a good option, and maybe they can end up adding some infield depth in free agency. But this team has done a great job. But Pablo Sandoval is always that guy to give him some pop. When you go into their outfield, Hunter Pence is there. I know they have Pence under contract. Michael Morse is another option. So they're paying for the contracts of Madison Bumgarner. They do have the contract of Buster Posey. They also re-signed Tim Lincecum to a 2-year extension, I think. So they're paying him. So this team does have the money to go out there and extend the contract of Pablo Sandoval. This is something that this team needs. Hopefully to get him under a 2 to 3 year deal, because this series alone, Pablo Sandoval has stepped up in a big way. It's always the playoffs that we see Pablo Sandoval take the next big step. Look at the World Series in 2012. The guy was hitting home runs off of Justin Verlander. year. Go back into 2010, you look into that series, and you see Pablo Sandoval completely go yard. And, it's always something about, the playoffs that always have Pablo Sandoval, step his game up a whole new notch. And now that we see the full development of a Brandon Belt, we see the full development of, we got, the addition of Hunter Pence, this team will be well on his way taking on the Kansas City Royals. The only thing that I'm having some problems with is how will Buster Posey, call these games with the speed on the base path with guys like Lorenzo Cain. I know they have a couple of guys on their bench that they use for pinch running, and it's complete domination. This is going to be in one of those exciting World Series that how often, when could we see the Kansas City Royals come in and just completely do work? I knew they're going to end up winning the division. At the beginning of the year, I projected them to win the division, but for them to go this far, this is something special. The Giants are coming into the World Series. They always take a year off from the World Series. They would win one, and then they'll take a year off, and they'll win another one, and then, they took a year off last year, but could this, be the year where the Giants, win the World Series again? But you know what? I think this is going to be a neck-and-neck World Series. I'm going to have a full preview of the World Series coming up, hopefully by Saturday night or Sunday morning. You guys will see a full World Series video for the World Series, the Giants and the Royals. I think this is going to be a hellacious 7-game series. I think it's going to go the distance. That's my early prediction. I think this is going to go the distance. It's going to be a neck-and-neck kind of a pitching battle because you got an excellent rotation in the Giants. Jake Peavy. They also got Madison Bumgarner. Then they're going to be going up against guys like James Shields, Jason Vargas. This is going to be a very interesting pitching matchup. And an excellent series which the Giants really have to bring their bats. They cannot go through these slumps for 3 straight innings and not get a single hit. They really got to step it up a whole notch. The Kansas City Royals, I think this team is already cocked and loaded, ready to go to war against these San Francisco Giants. Their bats are red hot. Eric Hosmer, Lorenzo Cain, Mike Moustakas. It seems like every time he gets to the plate, it's always a home run because that's what that guy always produced. He hits home runs every time he gets to that plate. So I'm very excited for this upcoming World Series. What are your guys' predictions? Congratulations to my San Francisco Giants on winning the 2014 NLCS, or the National League, being the best team in the National League. Congrats to them. Off to the World Series, everybody. I'll see you Tuesday, as I'm going to be possibly recapping it, but make sure you guys are unaware about my World Series recap. I'll hopefully get a guest on to do so, but until then, I'm Justin Godsey for Justin Godsey TV. I'll catch you guys in my next video.